So what I'm going to try and do is just sort of survey, if I can, more or less where I think we are with the DCPP as related to CMIP 6. So you've seen this, the DCPP panel, I gave you a little history of it earlier, came up with the idea of a project. And of course, we looked to the opportunity to have this embraced, if that's the correct word, endorsed at least, by CMIP, CMIP 6. So here is the CMIP 6 CMIP panel, and you can see that they have very famous people on there, including Jerry Neal. And there's also a number of committees and so forth. Now, again, you know, in the past, there was the CMIP 5 experimental design is now very different, as we've mentioned. So now these two kind of nice targets, you might call them, have become a roulette wheel, as it's been referred to, of which decadal prediction is one of many. And CMIP has tried to be very hard, I think, to organize and regularize. I hate to use the word bureaucratize, but to be more organized about CMIP 6 than they have about CMIP 5. So they have a number of requirements, and I'll try and give you a sense of what they are. I don't know I'm sure everybody hasn't looked into them, and indicate where we are with respect to them. One of the requirements to be endorsed by CMIP is that your MIP should address one of these grand challenges. And we've always been saying that regional climate information is the grand challenge that the DCPP would address. Now there is some indication that this may be demoted somewhat or may be replaced by a new grand challenge, or maybe a new grand challenge will be added. One, in fact, focused on decadal prediction. So if that were to be the case, we could certainly say that we are addressing a grand challenge. The other aspect that is involved is that they have what they call the DEC, which every group that is going to participate in any of these MIPs are supposed to do. And the DEC is, as you can see here, AMIP simulation, pre-industrial control, 1% per year, and an abrupt 4 times CO2. And this is kind of, it seems to me, based on the past in the sense of being very oriented towards climate simulation, not prediction. And the idea is that, this will somehow, this center now of this bullet is this DEC, and that this will carry on from one CMIP to another and give you some kind of continuity, and that you'll be able to somehow compare one model version against the other in terms of these experiments. There's nothing wrong with that exactly, except it could cause some difficulty if you come from the prediction side and want to do predictions, long time scale predictions of years to decades, and maybe don't feel that you have to do 1% per year CO2 or a pre-industrial control, because you will be, of course, always comparing your results against the observations. But I think in any event, almost all modeling groups will be doing these kinds of simulations in any case. And then there's another one. This is for CMIP 6. This is for CMIP. There's a distinction. And that means a historical simulation using CMIP 6 forcings. And of course, that would be very interesting to most of us, because we want to compare what the decadal prediction does compared to a historical forecast. This is just to indicate this idea that this DEC, will be the ribbon connecting future MIPs, future CMIPs. CMIP, when I say they tried very hard to be organized, you can see they have 10 criteria for becoming an endorsed MIP. And I've put some check marks here when I think that we're clearly, DCPPs clearly doesn't have a problem, and then some yellow ones where you might argue a bit. So the MIP addresses at least one of the key scientific questions. That seems fair enough. Connectivity to the DEC experiments and CMIP6 historical connections. I don't really think that's a problem, except for possible, there could possibly be some group that wants to do pure forecast kinds of things and not worry too much about the climate of their model, since you're directly comparing your forecast result anyway to the observations. So I don't really think that's a problem. This one, it seems to me, is number 3, is basically a critical feature, and is really what one of the main contributions of CMIP is the infrastructure. So there's standards, conventions, there's forcing data, there's this ESGF data treatment, and so forth. So that's really, really crucial, it seems to me, in the whole thing. All experiments are tiered, well-defined, useful, multi-model contexts, don't overlap. I think that's fine too. I just have this little star here that our components A, B, and C are separately tiered. And we invite all groups to participate in any or all of the MIPS. So we're not suggesting that people have to do tier 1 of A, B, and C, but if you want to do C, tier 1 is tier 1. If you only want to do C, that's fine too. So I hope we can convey that to the participants. It's been performed by more than one modeling group, that's fine. Modeling centers are committed, people are interested. A plan describing how to use the experiment, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think, the whole point is we are interested in the scientific aspect. To try and write out a plan seems a bit excessive, but we will try and satisfy Jerry and others on this. We've completed the questionnaire, we're willing to contribute a paper, and we're considering reporting results. So we're not in too bad shape, I don't know. So I don't know if people have any questions about that, but that's sort of what you need for CMIP endorsement. They've also tried to survey possible participants, and here's where this idea that we're inviting groups to participate in any or all of the MIPS sort of get lumped together, so I don't quite know what this number means. But anyway, you can see the green means they will perform, and the red, or whatever it is, means we're not interested. At least our green is bigger than the red. And quite a decent number of groups indicate their interest, considering especially, at least if it's CMIP component A, that represents a lot of computing and effort. This is also,
George,
yes?
go back a second. I think it's DCPP is one of the only 3 that aren't called a MIP.
Yes.
So I think you ought to consider changing it to the Decadal MIP so it'll be less confusing.
Well, for at least when we have company, and I have the DCPP essentially, was devised as a project, but we want CMIP6.
But is the P a project or a panel? That's fine.
It's a project. It's a project.
Okay, but it's.
Well, I hope it won't confuse too many people. I don't know if anyone else feels strongly about this. I feel strongly we should leave it as it is. Yes?
George, if you add the 3 bars, they will all add up to a fixed number.
Well, that's what I don't know. So
this is like saying about 35 modeling groups will be participating into the core experiment, the deck.
Could be. I mean, this is what we got from CMIP. Maybe you know, Jerry.
There's no abstentions.
There's no what?
Abstentions.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The blue is don't know yet.
Yeah, blue is don't know. Red is don't bother me, and green is we're interested. Do you know any more than that? Okay. So as you can see, we're fairly decent in the green, especially considering there's a lot of work involved in some of these. I don't know if anybody has any further comments upon the name, but anyway, let's press on. So this is also a very important feature of CMIP 6, and these are the forcing timelines. So CMIP coordinating the production and availability of these forcing data is very, very crucial for us all. And it didn't go that smoothly in CMIP 5, and we're certainly counting on this going more smoothly in CMIP 6. Down here at the bottom, you can see normal period of CMIP 6, it says, and that the idea that 2016, most of the historical information should be available. People could start doing simulations, control runs if they're going to do them, hindcast, historical simulations, and then ultimately our hindcast/forecasts. CMIP also, yes?
The historical forcing is some sort of a bottleneck for...
I can't hear you.
The historical forcing is some sort of bottleneck for doing these decadal predictions.
Yes, yes.
Is there any possibility to force those model groups who are responsible for the historical runs to be ready, say, in early 2016?
This is a question you want to direct to Jerry.
Yeah, the short answer is no. This was extremely painful to put this together. This required basically browbeating people into committing to doing a lot of work on their own time, on a certain schedule. You can just see the numbers of people involved, the number of groups, and a lot of them said, no, there's no way we can get this before 2017. So that's too late. We got to get it sometime in 2016. Well, then the negotiations started, and so this is about as optimistic as we think it's going to be, because some of these people are already lagging behind. So the hope would be that by late 2016 there would be enough forcing data that modeling groups could actually start doing some runs, and most of the runs will probably be done in 2017. But this is just kind of 20th and 21st century runs. Some of the MIPS could actually start running now, because a lot of MIPS don't require these types of forcing data.
Yeah, if I understood it right, this historic forcing data set will be recommended but will not be mandatory. So I think I asked Veronica about this, and I said, should all, for instance, for the volcano stuff, which we are interested, should all use the volcanic forcing data set? And she said, we cannot force the people. So I think this is something one has to be clear that one should try to use the same forcing data set. It's not mandatory from CMIP 6, it will be recommended, but it could be that a lot of that some groups use other forcing data set for land use or for volcanoes or for solar. So I think this is something one should be clear about, and it would be good if you constrain the forcing in DCPP for DCPP.
It would be good, but this would be a very, important public good if we could get these data sets, and they would be available, and unless we had some strong reason to reject them, we would all use them. This would be ideal. Now, if they don't show up, then we have to think again, I suppose. But if we all start using different ones right away, that's not so good either.
But I think one of the reasons that you cannot enforce it is the physics and development of some groups cannot accommodate certain forcings. So either the group doesn't contribute to CMIP at all, or they use their own way. Because I'm thinking, for example, for volcanoes, that would mean probably a couple of years of development for a group to be able to use the forcing. So,
but this could be very easy. I think land use or something is more difficult. But forcing, this is this seems to be quite easy. But if it's really implemented in your land scheme and in your albedo scheme, then it's starting to get really critical. As if you had some external prescription. Of course, it would be maybe some development, but should be quite easy.
I agree with you that we should all use the same, but I'm saying some groups can't for very good reasons, not that they don't want to.
Yeah, it's obviously something we're all vitally interested in. We'll be keeping our eyes on. This is just the WGCM produced a synthesis of comments on the MIPS, which showed they were trying also to indicate, they're also the idea that people should have some chance to comment on these. I just sort of just shoot this up because Clivar, says it's relevant, DCP is relevant, highly relevant, Priority 1 relevant, blah blah blah. So it's generally it's generally considered by other groups and so forth that this is a useful thing to do. The data aspects are something that I think worry us all. There was lots of pain and suffering the last time through, and we're hoping that this will be lessened. I mean, the concept is very, very nice. There is a new CMIP panel called the WGCM Infrastructure or WIP panel. Very interesting acronym. And Eric is going to tell us something about this, and we can ask him how, where all this is and how it's going. So where are we? We produced a submission, a second iteration, and now we'll have a final iteration of our submission with advice from you all, and the discussions we're going to have tomorrow and the next day about component C. We're a little, they have asked us about this DEC connectivity, and so we'll explain that to them. A few details on tiers and so forth, and of course we need to provide the design for component C. We'll add some words about analysis plan, but I don't think we really, we're among adults here. And here's the timeline. So data requirements were submitted to CMIP. Final DCPP design for us will be at the end of June. Basically, we'll be looking for endorsement. Forcing data, of course, is very crucial. And there's this supposed special issue that with a target of the 10th.
So, George, I had a question. The endorsements went out already. So this
Well,
was not get endorsed?
I don't know. I don't know if we've seen an endorsement as such.
You should have gotten something from the, well, Jerry knows it better, a member of the CMIP panel as to whether this is endorsed. If it is so, then if there is any additional thing that we need to do. That was about a month ago.
Well, okay, I think in that case we were endorsed as far as I know, but we've always given them the idea that we would have this meeting when we would, finalize various plans. So yes, as far as I know, it's been endorsed, but there were some queries, and we're going to revamp our final presentation or final.
The thing was the experiment design wasn't quite finalized. This component C wasn't finalized, so that was kind of an asterisk, that needed to be done. There was this issue of strict enforcement of the DEC experiments, and I think the compromise there was that if a MIP can make the case scientifically that you don't need to run all the DEC experiments, that for the science you want to get out of your MIP, then that would be an exception to that. But I think the actual finalization is supposed to happen into this month.
Yes.
Or yeah, you got that on there,
Yeah.
2016.
All right, so what do we want from CMIP? Well, I keep thinking we want more infrastructure and less structure, but hey, timely historical and future forcing, timely data ESGF specifications and so forth. We need this forcing. I mean, that's really crucial. I think you've already heard that message, Jerry. Data treatment, well, I hope we can understand what the situation is there, because I think it's a bit of a black box to some of us. And I don't know if there's any suggestions people here would like to convey to CMIP. You can do it because Jerry is next up. Or you can do it now. Okay? Yes?
So one question, what do you mean more infrastructure, less structure?
Well, I mean, we really look to CMIP for the infrastructure, basically the data treatment, the forcing, these kinds of things, and perhaps, not quite so many questions, but that's fine. It's just it's supposed to be faintly amusing.
I'm sure Jerry will say that better than I will, but I think the whole key of the structure, because the load of the infrastructure is huge.
Yes.
But I'm going to make the point. So if we, as a community, allow any MIP to come in and say, oh, I have a great idea, you deal with the infrastructure, I deal with my own structure, then the whole thing collapses. So the idea of having the structure that you put in question mark was to make sure that the communities coming to CENIP are mature enough, both scientifically and technically, to be within that. Because the infrastructure is the weak point. It's fragile.
Yes, yes.
And so I'm saying you can only benefit from the infrastructure if you follow structure. So that's why I think it's really important that we all, I know the structure, we're all scientists, we hate structures.
No,
But
no,
if we, no, but
structure, of
well, I'm the
course.
first one to say something. But what I'm saying is that if we're not careful with that, if we not structure ourselves enough, the common infrastructure will collapse.
No, I have no problem with that. I guess I'm a little, the deck, the requirement of these deck runs, for instance, is a little less obvious to me for, say, a decadal prediction kind of.
That's a different story. That's what
This
the
is-
science question. That's a
Yeah,
different
this is
story.
the science thing.
Yeah.
That's all I meant.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we've got to keep going, but it's good we're having lots of good discussion.
I just wanted to say, because I was present at the CMIP 6 meeting that the US symbols had. My understanding is that the deck is something that is attached to development. So somebody, one of the modeling centers develops a new model, then they run the deck so everybody knows what that model is doing. What's the climate of the model, what's sensitivity. So that's something we want to know about, right? When we run our experiments. If we're using models that are already being developed and run, we're using a kind of like a step back models, then the deck already exists.
Yeah, no, as I said, this is not going to be a problem for most groups. They will do this automatically. It's just that there could be some groups that would be excluded from the component A, for instance, because they may want to do high resolution predictions and so forth, and they may not wish to do, a long control run. That's my only problem.
So of the 17 groups that have committed to do DCPP,
Yes.
have you gotten any feeling for any of those 17 that wouldn't
No,
do the deck?
no, I haven't.
Okay, so maybe
But
it's
we
not
haven't,
an issue.
yeah, that's what I've been trying to say. But, I don't think it's a big issue, but it's not, an obvious scientific requirement for prediction. Two quick comments, because Jerry's next, yeah.
So the question that I had, I know that we discussed it with respect to the previous version of this myth. Have you decided on what to provide? In other words, are you providing the raw data sets or bias corrected?
No bias correction.
No bias, so
No.
it is raw data sets?
Yes.
Okay, when did that, was it decided?
I don't remember exactly, but, it was a mistake to provide the bias corrected ones in the first place, if you ask me. We were sort of browbeaten into doing it for CMIP 5. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry.
Just a quick comment on what you said about the deck. I think in our case at GXL, it is going to be a problem, and we are not going to participate to component E for this reason, because we have already run with a high resolution version decadal prediction, and we thought maybe we could contribute those, and we cannot afford running them again now, but we have already produced them with the old forcing, and we have few of the deck experimental old, but so we also asked Veronica about it, and it was not clear whether it was possible or not, so we're not participating this time for that
Well,
reason.
we should talk about that, because I'm not sure, we have not got blanket exemption from the deck, but we have, possible exemptions, or individual cases.
The forcing is also an issue.
Well, it may or may not be, at least, may or may not. We don't know what the new forces will be like, so it may not be that